what I wanted to do was maybe just talk a little bit about what's happened to the municipal supply company sector in the UK and draw some lessons from that. It's not been a complete disaster, and then kind of look to the future about the role of municipalities, because I know some of this can be very UK specific, but I think some of the lessons are replicable. You can across other countries. I think it's worth pointing out that the recent news this week is that the government has now launched a non-statutory inquiry into the collapse of Robin Hood Energy, following on from a public interest report that was produced by the council's auditors in August. So that this kind of rumbles on some of the after effects of this. One point I wanted to make was that there is a tendency, I think, particularly in the UK, to almost point the finger at local authorities and say they shouldn't be involved in energy projects because what the local authorities know about running energy companies. And I think there's a danger inherent in that it will make authorities risk averse in the future. But there are lots of other examples of municipal energy companies, not just supply companies, around district heating, around energy efficiency. So it's not the only model that's available. But I thought I'd just quickly review what's happened to the not-for-profit sector in the UK. The market was opened up by the regulator back in 2009. So there was a lot of new entrants, profit-led ones and not-for-profit ones. So a number of local authorities looked to set up supply companies, including Nottingham City Council, who set up Robin Hood in 2015. But this slide just shows basically what's happened. None of them left. Well, there's one left standing, basically. Robin Hood was sold to the enemy, to the big corporate Centrica British Gas in July and August. So the actual businesses it was set up to challenge, basically, as an insurgent energy supplier, it's now owned by them, basically. So it's been sold to British Gas. It's 130,000 domestic customers and 800 business customers have transferred over, and it made cumulative losses in 2018-19 of 23.1 million. Similarly, Bristol Energy, which was the other local authority energy company that was established around the same time as Robin Hood, that's now been sold to Together Energy. This is another energy company, but Together Energy is 50% owned by Warrington Borough Council, a municipality in the northwest of England. The other not-for-profit company, Our Power, which was set up in the housing association sector, that ceased trading in 2019. That was a cooperative model set up by housing associations, and that ran into difficulties and losses. Portsmouth City Council's company never actually traded at all and still accumulated losses and stopped trading this year in October. And the only one left is of this particular model is now Warrington Borough Council. They bought a 50% stake in Together Energy, which is a private energy company based in Scotland last year. It's a completely different model. It's a commercial venture, and Together Energy is backed up by BP. So it's not exactly green energy. BP contributes something like 11% to global emissions. So it's a bit of a greenwash at the best of times, but it's set up for a different purpose. Together Energy. It's bought Bristol Energy, but it's also there because Warrington have got lots of other assets, solar farms that they own, and they're looking to use Together Energy as a supply company to Sleeve Power. So it's not a great picture, really. There is one other not-for-profit company that's supported by crowdfunding that's again based in Scotland called the People's Energy Company, but all the others now are effectively, the market's consolidated. So I think very briefly to say it wasn't a complete disaster. The intervention of Robin Hood into the market, this infogram sets out some of its achievements. It moved over to completely green electricity from wind and solar assets in July 2019. It had a positive impact on the prepayment market for particularly vulnerable fuel customers. I think one of the problems is that it lost the competitive advantage. A lot of these companies were successful to start off with, and then subsequently because of things like the price caps introduced by the regulator Ofgem, and obviously because of wholesale price rises, that became less sustainable. It did create 250 odd jobs in Nottingham, but unfortunately now those staff have been made redundant. And even though it accumulated losses, and everyone focuses on that, the loans to Robin Hood Energy were at commercial rates, and it was generating £2 million in interest payments back on those loans to the council every year. So there are some success stories from Robin Hood, I would say. I wanted to kind of come on to, some of the lessons from Robin Hood and what we need to think about for the future. Problems with a simple supply company. What were the issues? There were problems in terms of the market and the regulatory environment with those companies entered. They were not vertically integrated businesses, so they were supply businesses only. So most of the other companies in the large businesses in the energy sector in the UK are vertically integrated. They own parts of the distribution network, and they've got large generation assets as well. So a lot of the municipal supply companies didn't have that. There were clear issues around risk, which have been highlighted by the audit report, because the company itself, the financial costs fell entirely on Nottingham City Council. It was the sole shareholder, and as pressures on local authority budgets become tighter because of austerity in the UK, it's become less and less, less able to support that and sustain that business. The utility model, I think, was starting to change to a different kind of model, but it was too late, really, too late to respond to changes in the market. And I think another lesson is about political control, about political support. It needs long-term political commitment. And even though Nottingham as an authority is a strong Labour authority, there's still political change and political priorities change. And the former leader of the council, who was a big supporter of Robin Hood, stood down last May, and a new political leadership came in, less supportive of Robin Hood Energy. So there's a number of reasons why it failed, basically. And that brings me on to what's the future model look like? Well, if we're going to develop, I think these lessons are not just UK ones, but this is taken from a report that was done by an organisation called Regen, which I think I've shared the link, but I will do that again, which I think is a good report about local leadership to transform the energy system. And that kind of suggests a number of roles for local authorities. So as conveners, as service providers, as, in terms of its planning role, as social landlords, and as landowners. So just to really kind of touch on a few of these, the first role in terms of convening, the objectives need to be linked to local priorities. So they can be different across different kinds of municipalities and local authorities. So for instance, if it's a dense urban area or a city, you might focus more on CHP, district heating, retrofit projects, addressing fuel poverty. If you're a large rural authority with a lot of land assets, then maybe promoting renewables, supporting local community renewable objectives would be better for those authorities. So it needs to reflect local priorities. We need to build political consensus. I wanted to use Geneva as an example of this because it needs long-term political commitment, and that's consensus across various, kind of different political persuasions. I'm always impressed. I was always impressed with Geneva's 25-year master plan for energy. And I don't know an awful lot about Switzerland, but I know that the various cantons and political elements don't necessarily always agree. But what they were able to do was to build a long-term plan for the energy transition. And whilst priorities can change within that, everyone's signed up to and committed to delivering that plan. So I think that's really important. Collaboration. So particularly in the UK, we don't have the kind of opportunities that you have in Germany around owning parts of the distribution network. So we have to find new approaches. So collaboration with the distribution network operators, the electricity system and gas system operators is really important. And for instance, in Greater Manchester, at the present time, the combined authority and the district councils are looking at the development of local energy markets. which is a collaboration with the DNOs, and that's around kind of how you link up distributed energy assets within a kind of local market. And it also might involve things like local authorities investing in infrastructure as well. So, for instance, to unlock the grid for renewables, local authorities can do a lot of work around that. And in terms, am I getting there basically?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you have 2 more minutes. So
2 minutes, right? I'll very quickly cover. So collaboration, the built environment, councils can have a real impact there, play a key role in terms of with local housing providers, building local supply chains, bringing in investment and supporting local skills development. So one of the recommendations from the Regen report was that all of the eco funding, the energy company obligation funding for retrofit, should be given to local authorities because they are best at rolling out area-based schemes for retrofit. So there's a number of different, and a big one I think is also supporting community and cooperative energy in their areas. So I'll come to my final slide, which is just to recap some of the key areas. So governance, civic leadership's really important, and municipalities need to have a strategic stake in the energy transition, whether that's a stake in the system itself, but it needs to be to have a clear role within that. It's about resilient local economies. So the whole thing around community wealth building, supporting local green investment and jobs and skills and training, that's a really important role for the municipality and for municipal energy. New business models. So whether that's public-private partnerships, or I could, maybe in the discussion we can get around to this, so I won't go into a long discussion around energy from waste and off-taking models, but that's another option there. And energy democracy is the other element, is trying to get citizen and community buy-in to the energy system, and having a stake in the system, not purely being consulted or having a minor role within that, so that the local authority takes an active role in promoting local community and cooperative energy. I know that's probably overshot my time as it's Lavinia, so I'll shut up there.